A new report indicates that Donald Trump had pressured his former Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, to then pressure the Department of Justice to drop an investigation and case against an Iranian-Turkish gold trader who was laundering money for Iran. He later pleaded guilty, but luckily Rex Tillerson refused to do what Trump wanted him to do. According to Bloomberg, Tillerson refused, arguing it would constitute interference in an ongoing investigation of the trader. His name was Reza Zarrab. Now, the lawyer representing this individual was Rudy Giuliani, who wasn't even Donald Trump's personal lawyer at that time. Now, there were other participants in the Oval Office as Donald Trump made this request. And according to Bloomberg, they were shocked by the request. Tillerson immediately repeated his objections to then Chief of Staff John Kelly in a hallway conversation just outside the Oval Office, emphasizing that the request would be illegal. Now, what's also interesting is Rex Tillerson has been on the record talking about how often Donald Trump would request that he does illegal things. Tillerson has said publicly that the president frequently asked him to do things that were illegal. Here's his direct quote. So often the president would say, here's what I want to do and here's how I want to do it. And I would have to say to him, Mr. President, I understand what you want to do, but you can't do it that way. It violates the law, it violates treaty, and he got really frustrated when we'd have those conversations.
Look, again, it goes to Democratic incompetence. The former Secretary of State for Donald Trump has said publicly he would often ask to break the law. You just heard the quote. It would be a violation of not only treaties, but laws, Mr. President, and we cannot break the law. And Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer were like,
it's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if Obama's Secretary of State, one of whom was Hillary Clinton, said, oh yeah, Obama would often ask me to break the law. Do you think the Republicans might have investigated that? So the Democrats finally kind of started impeachment on Ukraine. Tillerson said that way earlier. He said, oh yeah, Trump would ask me to break the laws. Nothing from the Democrats. So anyway, look, Trump's in a world of trouble, man. You get Tillerson to testify, and if he is even 20% honest with what has happened, it's over. I mean, the guy, he has all the goods. And Tillerson hates Trump. The only reason he wouldn't testify is because he might have dirty hands in Russia and he doesn't want to implicate himself, okay? As former CEO of ExxonMobil, Exxon had a giant oil contract with Russia. That's the only reason Rex Tillerson was Secretary of State in the first place. I mean, what the hell is this CEO of ExxonMobil doing as Secretary of State? The corruption was obvious from day one.
Yeah.
But Tillerson is, unlike Trump, is smart. So he thought they'd go in and they'd do a sophisticated corruption where they would follow the laws, but they would manipulate things and finally get the sanctions lifted so Exxon could do that deal and him and all of his buddies would get rich. But Trump comes in, he's like, oh, Giuliani's representing this criminal. Okay, break the law and get the criminal out, send him back to Turkey, and I like Turkey because I've got deals with them. And Tillerson's like, that's how we're gonna do it?
Yeah.
No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna go to jail, you idiot.
So let me fill in the blanks on that, because this story is actually a pretty good combination of what's happening with Turkey in Syria and also Donald Trump and his disingenuous comments in regard to Iran. So now Erdogan wanted the charges dropped against this individual, Zarrab, right? So he was the one urging Trump to get these charges dropped. This guy was being investigated by our DOJ because he was laundering money for Iran. And remember, Iran is dealing with sanctions, right? So that's why the DOJ would investigate this. So in order to do a favor for Erdogan, Trump then pressures Rex Tillerson to then go around and pressure the DOJ to drop the charges and the investigation against this individual.
Look, we have to. There's two things here. He's helping Rudy, who's a buddy of his. By the way, Rudy Giuliani, as usual, changed the story. First, they said, hey, did you ever have conversations with anybody in the Trump administration about this individual that you're representing? He said, no. Then they caught him and they said, okay, fine, I did.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, maybe I did. And if I did, so what?
He literally said that.
Yeah.
He literally said that, okay?
They're criminals, they're crooks. It's so obvious.
Okay, so at this point, given the several massive favors and unexpected and ridiculous favors that Trump has done Turkey, you got to start wondering, what does Turkey have on Trump? Because look, some of his ironic defenders on Russia will be like, well, he does a lot of big favors for Saudi Arabia too. I know. He has financial interests in Saudi Arabia. He's the guy who said, the Saudis buy my apartments at $40 to $50 million. What am I supposed to do, not like them? So what other promises have Saudi Arabia made? One of the calls that are hidden away in the secret server are from Trump to Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia. He's got a Trump Tower in Istanbul. What favors have the Turks asked for? Or what do they have on him? Or what favors have they promised them? Because this is again, just like over the top. And look, it's not surprising that Trump would go over the top, but why? Why? Like, is he randomly doing favors for Norway? No, he's not doing random favors for random countries. There are certain corrupt countries that he absolutely loves,
right,
and will go out of his way and break the law in favor of. So it's a good question as to why, but the Democrats are still debating whether they should ask for his New York State tax returns.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So we.
Hold on,
yeah.
I've got
one thing I wanted to note though. So Rex Tillerson was, the press reached out to him for comment. He hasn't commented. The DOJ, of course, is not going to comment on this. But I do agree that this is a great lead for the impeachment investigation, and he should absolutely be subpoenaed to testify. Yeah,
100%. I mean, it is unconscionable not to have Tillerson testify. And so, why? By the way, why does Tillerson hate Trump now? They used to be great friends, and that's why they were, had mutual financial interests. So why that? Because Rex Tillerson is one of the few guys in the Trump administration with any degree of pride, and so the rest of them are weaklings. So when Trump bullies them in the preposterous ways that he does, they cower. It's the saddest thing I've ever seen. But Tillerson ran ExxonMobil and has been used to being in charge for his whole life, right? And he has some degree of pride. So when an idiot like Donald Trump tries to bully him, Tillerson was like, no. And so eventually he called him an effing moron and left. So Tillerson's, he hated being humiliated by Donald Trump.
Yep.
It got under it got under his skin. And I think that he'd almost like, even if it had a certain percentage chance of getting him in trouble, he'd be like, oh, let me at him, let me at him.
Definitely.
And only, of course, Democrats are like, oh, should we ask him? I don't know. Okay, all right, last piece of irony here. The guy that Trump wanted to get off and Giuliani wanted to get off, as Anna explained to you, violated sanctions against Iran.
Those are US imposed sanctions.
Donald Trump tore up the peace deal we had with Iran, where we were getting their nuclear energy out of the country because he cares so much about the sanctions against Iran. No, he doesn't. He doesn't care about that at all. He was willing to get that crook out of jail illegally. He doesn't care about sanctions against Iran. The only thing he ever cares about is Donald Trump. So money, 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 money. Where is it? I want it, I want it. And so he has no principles whatsoever. I mean, that is the biggest hypocrisy you could imagine. And so if you're one of those MAGA chuds who are like, oh yeah, that's right, Iran, we need to do tough sanctions against Iran. That's why we have our King Donald Trump. Well, that's the guy who wanted to make sure that the guy who violated the Iran sanctions got away scot-free. Because it's not about that, you idiots. And one, sorry. Last thing that's relevant here, and if you're wondering why the hell does Turkey care about the guy who's violating the Iran sanctions? Well, he's working with the head of the Turkish state bank. And now, why do you think the government of Turkey and the officials in charge there are worried about what the head of the state bank might reveal? Now, all those countries, Saudi Arabia, Russia, Turkey, many others, they've got to get some of their money out of that country if they're the leaders of that country and into places where they could wash it a little bit and have it come out clean the other side. Now, could the head of a state bank help them do that? Could sanctions hurt their efforts to do that as we did with Russia? All of this has been about helping corrupt authoritarian leaders in other countries wash their money.
Yep.
And Trump has been helping the Russians do that for a long time. I don't know if he helped the Turks or the Saudis do it before. So you might want to look into his business dealings. And for all this time, the Democrats still have not looked into his business dealings. It is unconscionable incompetence and negligence. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.